A young boy walks into a quiet upscale restaurant. His clothes are simple, a little worn around the edges, but clean. He's nervous, clearly out of place. He steps inside slowly, taking a quick look around at the shiny polished floors and the white tablecloths. He doesn't quite belong here. The boy's hands are shaking as he holds the menu. His eyes scan the page, stopping on dishes he can't afford. The prices seem like numbers from another world. His stomach growls quietly, but he can't even decide what to get. Everything seems too expensive. He's not sure what to do. The waiter notices him, standing awkwardly in the middle of the room, and walks over with a friendly smile. "Hello, sir. What can I get you today?" The boy's throat tightens. He tries to speak, but the words get stuck. He glances at the menu again, trying to look confident, but the prices are overwhelming. His fingers grip the edges of the paper as he hesitates, deciding if he should order something simple, or if he should just leave. He doesn't want to look foolish. He doesn't want to be judged. But this restaurant is too nice for him. He counts the crumpled bills in his pocket one more time, hoping they'll stretch further than he thinks. The boy finally takes a deep breath and decides to take a seat. He's not sure how long he can stay. But as he sits, his eyes dart to the window, where the soft light from outside makes everything seem a little less intimidating. Maybe things will be okay. The door of the restaurant swings open with a soft chime. A tall man walks in. His sharp suit is perfectly tailored, and his expensive watch gleams under the warm restaurant lights. He steps in with the kind of confidence that only comes from a life of luxury. The other patrons glance at him, and a few even straighten up in their seats. He's used to being the center of attention, and today is no different. The man surveys the room with a look of approval. He waves at the waiter, who immediately rushes over to guide him to a table. The rich man moves smoothly, his every step deliberate. He doesn't hurry. He owns this place in a way that makes it clear he has no reason to rush. As he sits down, he picks up the menu with one hand, not even looking at it for long. He knows what he wants. He orders the most expensive dishes without a second thought. The waiter nods enthusiastically, eager to please. The rich man looks up and smiles. "Get me the best," he says with a smirk. His voice is loud, filled with assurance. He looks around the room and sees that people are watching him. It's clear he's enjoying it. He sits back in his chair, as if waiting for the world to come to him. Everything about him screams wealth. His clothes, his confidence, even the way he speaks to the staff. He takes out his phone, scrolling through messages, his laughter filling the air when a joke on his screen catches his attention. He looks so relaxed, so comfortable. In this world of fine dining, he's the star. As he waits for his meal, his eyes glance over at the young boy sitting by himself. For a moment, he watches the boy fidget with his menu. He sees the hesitation in the boy's face, the way he nervously looks at the prices, and something changes in the rich man's expression. A smug grin spreads across his face. It's almost as if he's found a new source of entertainment for the evening. The rich man's eyes flicker across the room, briefly landing on the young boy at the corner table. He watches the boy for a moment, his expression slowly changing. There's something in the way the boy nervously flips through the menu, his fingers hovering over the prices, unsure of what to pick. The rich man lets out a quiet chuckle to himself. He leans back in his chair, enjoying the view of the boy who seems so out of place here, as if he doesn't belong. It's almost amusing. This boy with his worn clothes, sitting in a restaurant where the cheapest meal costs more than his entire outfit. A smug smile creeps across the rich man's face. He's seen people like the boy before, the ones who don't know what it's like to live in a world of luxury. The boy doesn't even seem to know how to handle himself in this environment. The rich man finds it oddly entertaining. He glances back at the waiter, signaling him with a flick of his finger. The waiter approaches, and the rich man lowers his voice, still keeping his eyes on the boy. "Take a look at that table," he says, nodding toward the poor boy. "See how uncomfortable he looks? Let's have a little fun with him." The waiter looks uncertain, but nods, unsure if he should comply. The rich man, however, is already set on his plan. He stands up from his chair, his movements smooth and casual, and walks toward the boy's table. He wants to see how the boy reacts. He's ready to humiliate him, just for the amusement of it. As he approaches, he knows this will be an easy game. The boy is already so nervous. The rich man can't wait to see the look on his face when he begins his little joke. The rich man reaches the boy's table, his footsteps deliberate and full of confidence. He stands there for a moment, watching the boy before speaking. The boy looks up, startled, unsure of why this man is standing in front of him. His fingers clutch the edge of the menu tightly, his face pale. "Hey there," the rich man says, his voice too loud for the quiet atmosphere. He grins, looking down at the boy. "You seem a little lost. Is it your first time here?" The boy's throat tightens, and he nods slowly, not trusting his voice to come out right. His heart races, and he shifts uncomfortably in his seat. He doesn't know what to say, but the rich man doesn't give him time to think. "Let me guess," the rich man continues, his eyes scanning the boy's worn-out clothes. "You're trying to figure out what to order, right? Well, let me help you out. I'll give you a little challenge." The boy looks up at him, confused. The rich man sits down across from him without asking, leaning in a little too close. "You see," the rich man says, his voice dropping to a mock-serious tone, "I'm going to give you a game. Guess the price of the dish I ordered, and I'll pay for your meal. Fail, and you'll have to pay for both." The boy blinks, not sure if this is a joke or if the man is serious. The rich man chuckles, clearly enjoying himself. "Don't worry, I'll make it easy for you. It's not like you could afford the meal anyway," he adds with a smirk. The boy feels the heat rise in his cheeks, but he stays silent. He glances at the menu again, trying to focus. His mind is racing. He has no idea how much the man's meal cost, but he doesn't want to look foolish. "Come on," the rich man presses. "Just take a guess." "It's simple. What's the price of my main course?" The boy opens his mouth to speak, but his words catch in his throat. He looks at the rich man, then at the menu. His hands tremble slightly as he thinks of a number, trying to avoid embarrassment. The rich man's eyes glint with amusement. "Take your time," he mocks, "but don't take too long." The boy finally stammers out a number. I think it's 50? The rich man lets out a loud laugh, shaking his head in disbelief. 50? You think a meal like that costs 50? Try again, my friend. You're way off. The boy's face flushes with embarrassment. He's not sure if he can take much more of this. As the rich man laughs, his voice echoing through the restaurant, the boy sinks lower into his chair, his face turning bright red. The laughter around him seems to grow louder, and the boy feels as though everyone is staring at him. His stomach twists in discomfort, and he wishes he could disappear. But just as the rich man is about to speak again, a calm voice interrupts. "Excuse me, sir," the voice says, cutting through the tension. "I think you've had enough fun with the boy." The rich man pauses mid-laugh, his head turning slightly toward the sound of the voice. The boy looks up, surprised, not sure what's happening. The voice belongs to a man sitting at the bar, a stranger who had been quietly sipping a drink before. The stranger stands up, his movements smooth but deliberate. He walks over to the table with a sense of purpose, his eyes locked on the rich man. There's no hesitation in his steps, and it's clear he isn't afraid of the wealthy man, despite the difference in their appearance. The rich man raises an eyebrow, clearly annoyed by the interruption. "And who are you?" he asks, his tone dripping with condescension. The stranger doesn't flinch. He stands tall, meeting the rich man's gaze with a calm but firm expression. "I'm someone who doesn't like seeing people humiliated for no reason," the stranger replies, his voice steady. The rich man scoffs, dismissing the stranger with a wave of his hand. "This is none of your business," he says, trying to brush the stranger off. But the stranger doesn't back down. Instead, he leans in slightly, his voice still calm, but his words firm. "I think it's my business when you make someone feel small just to entertain yourself. Why don't you leave the boy alone?" The rich man's face twists with irritation. He doesn't like being challenged in front of others. "Who do you think you are?" he asks, his voice rising slightly. The stranger simply smiles, his expression unbothered. "I'm the person who's going to stop you from making this kid feel worse than you already have." The rich man's eyes narrow. "And how are you going to do that?" The stranger's response is simple. "I'm going to challenge you." The rich man looks the stranger up and down, trying to figure out if he's serious. He smirks, clearly amused. "You want to challenge me?" he asks, leaning back in his chair. What could someone like you possibly offer me? The stranger's expression remains calm, unbothered by the rich man's arrogance. I'm willing to bet that I'm smarter than you, and I'm willing to bet that you'll lose. His voice is steady, his words simple but clear. The rich man chuckles, clearly thinking the stranger is joking. This should be good, he says, crossing his arms. What's your game? I'll ask you questions, the stranger replies, his voice firm. And if you can't answer them, you'll pay for both meals. If you win, I'll pay for the kids' meal. But if I win, you pay for everything. The rich man thinks for a moment, sizing up the stranger. He looks around at the people in the restaurant, who are all watching the interaction with growing interest. He can feel the eyes on him, but he's not the kind of man who backs down. He's always the one in control, the one who wins. He laughs, shaking his head. You really think you can outsmart me? He asks, amused. Fine, I accept. Ask your questions. The stranger nods, his gaze never leaving the rich man's face. He begins with a simple question. What year did the first man land on the moon? The rich man's smile falters for a moment. He's not expecting a history question. He rubs his chin and squints at the ceiling, thinking. After a few seconds, he finally responds, 1969? The stranger nods, impressed but not showing it too much. Correct, but let's see if you can keep up. The rich man leans forward slightly, his confidence returning. Give me your best shot, he says, eager to prove himself. The questions come one after another. The stranger asks about famous books, important events in history, and scientific discoveries. The rich man stumbles on a few, his answers getting more and more uncertain. The questions get harder, and the rich man's confidence begins to crack. He's not prepared for this. He's used to winning with money, not with knowledge. He starts to sweat, his arrogance slipping away, but he doesn't want to admit defeat. The poor boy watches in silence, his heart racing. For the first time that evening, he starts to feel a little hope. The rich man shifts uncomfortably in his seat, his palms beginning to sweat as the questions keep coming. His confident demeanor is slipping, and he's starting to realize he's out of his depth. The stranger's questions aren't just about facts, they're about thinking critically, seeing the world in ways the rich man never had to. With each incorrect answer, the rich man's face reddens, and the poor boy watches with growing disbelief. He never imagined this moment would come. For the first time, he feels something like justice in the air. The stranger asks one final question. What's the most valuable thing in the world? The rich man opens his mouth, but hesitates. He's trying to come up with the right answer, but the question is too simple, too deep. He doesn't know how to answer, not with the confidence he once had. He looks around the room, seeking the comfort of his wealth, but it's gone. He feels small. Time, the stranger says softly but firmly before the rich man can respond. It's the one thing no amount of money can buy. The rich man stares at the stranger, his mouth hanging open. The poor boy looks at him, seeing the realization on his face. He's lost. The stranger stands up slowly and looks at the rich man. You've had your fun. Now it's time to pay. The rich man sighs, his shoulders slumping as he digs out his wallet. His pride is bruised, but he knows there's no escape. He hands over more money than the poor boy could ever dream of. The stranger smiles at the boy, nodding gently. Don't worry, kid, it's all taken care of. The poor boy looks up, stunned. He manages to mutter a quiet, thank you, his voice shaky but full of gratitude. As the rich man slinks away, defeated, the stranger pats the boy on the shoulder. There's more to life than money, he says softly. Don't forget that. The boy nods, finally feeling a sense of relief. He's learned more tonight than he ever could have imagined.